DreamHack Open is brought to you by Corsair, Monster Energy, Esport Management, and GGBet.
Eight teams from around the world have assembled here in Sweden for their shot at the glory and the cash prize associated with the DreamHack Open circuit. It's going to be a beautiful weekend, and I'm very excited to jump into the action and look at that glorious trophy. It didn't get lost. It's here. It made it. No shipping malfunctions at the DreamHack Open. I am your host, Bach. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, of course, Esport Management, Corsair, and Monster Energy, who make everything here possible. Joining me on the desk throughout the weekend, I've got two experts, or really one and
one and a half.
One and a half. Tom is willing to. That's not a joke about Tom's height. That's just he's new to this.
Yeah.
This is your
both of our height. Come on, you can't just throw me under the bus if you're going to make height jokes.
I can stand on my tippy toes this whole weekend. This is a great calf workout. I'm just going to do this the whole time. This is totally normal. But I've got Tom Biz and I've got Potter. I mean, welcome, Tom, to the desk. Your first time doing analyst desk work, right?
I have to use my legs. I'm not used to that. Like, most of the time I can just slouch down.
Yeah, but you can do like...
Yeah, I'm a little bit, I can maneuver a little bit more.
Busting out the dance moves already,
you can shimmy and dance, yeah.
No one can see what you're doing. So
I know, that's the best part. That's probably for the best. No one wants to see what I was just doing, not even myself. Sometimes I even look in the mirror and I'm like, oh, really?
That's me every day.
Oh my God.
It's a bald thing.
Yeah.
It's a bald thing. And then obviously we have the true expert in Potter, former professional player. Do you ever miss playing? Do you like your transition to desk?
You know, yeah, I do miss playing. I definitely do. I mean, the glory that comes with competing, right? But I'm loving it. I'm loving the desk work, so I'm glad to be here.
Let's take a look at our groups as we get ready to jump into the action here with our very first match of the day. Looking at Group A, you know, there are some logos here that maybe people aren't familiar with. Tom, why don't you walk us through the teams?
Well, yeah, we've had a few sort of rebrands at least. We had Crazy, like coming out from the guys from Valiant as well, so or Kraforzi, as some people like to call them. Like, I think the rebrands looked pretty good for them in terms of their performance since the rebrand. Like they were flawless in MDL, 16-0, and I think last time I looked, they'd lost one map since the rebrand, and they won that best of 3. That was versus Heroic to actually get into the minor. So yeah, it's going well for them. Aristocracy as well. The X-Devils won. That is Taz's roster, and yeah, they're looking for an organization. And I have to say, at this point, I'm surprised they haven't been picked up. Like, they had a decent showing in Pro League.
There was a news outlet that a team just invested and rebranded into Aristocracy, so they've got an interesting project going on over there. Yeah.
I mean, that's the one thing is, like, people are coming in and it's like, who is Aristocracy? And they go, oh, them.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes much more sense. I will say this, even if that was a temporary placeholder, most teams in North America do the L for org, L for salary, whatever, and I'm so over that, like having to watch the semi-pro scene, trying to understand who these teams are. I love that was like, no, we're not going to be like X
Yeah,
blank.
no, I hate that.
That's a bad move. So even if it was just a placeholder, which it doesn't appear to be, good on them. But we also have teams like Ancient and Chaos here, maybe teams that people aren't as familiar with looking at, you know, some of the teams we have in connection with them, like Windstrike and Avant-Garde. Do those teams actually stand a chance? Like, is there enough for them to go off of here?
Absolutely. I mean, I think so. I think ever since the post-economy changes and post-AUG updates and things of this nature, I think we're seeing a lot of underdog teams coming into tournaments such as DreamHack Opens, and they're surprising a lot of people, a lot of new players coming, up-and-coming young talent. And I think this is exactly, 2019 is the time, it's the year that we're seeing a lot of success from these players that have invested a lot of time and effort.
The wild thing for me is Counter-Strike now is 7 years old. And like
Counter-Strike Go.
Counter-Strike CSGO.
Counter-Strike as a whole is much older. Yeah.
I think it's 20 years since CS was released. This is the 20th anniversary of CS. But CSGO is 7 years old, and now we're like, this is the year that the newcomers are going to like stand a chance. I'm like, I would have never thought that that would be a statement I would make 7 years into a game's history. That like, oh, it's still going. It's not just like, oh, it's there, but it's like barely hanging on, like TF2 was towards the end, where it's like there's like 3 tournaments throughout the year, and
well,
it's
that's
like
the
a
beauty
BYOC.
of Counter-Strike, right? I mean, the meta is consistently shifting, and it's these players that are capitalizing on the meta and perfecting it, and then all of a sudden a newcomer comes in, and they have a different approach, they have a different style that they've perfected, and then other teams start copying that. So it's definitely a changing landscape, and it's exciting.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and take a look at our opening match here for Group A. It's going to be Avangard and Winstrike at the top of the bracket, and then Tricked and Aristocracy facing off in the bottom portion of the Group A bracket. Looking at this first match, which we're going to be jumping into, which is Avangard and Winstrike. Avangard, obviously champions in Rio. They fought against a home crowd opponent in Furia in the final, and we were maybe a little bit fanboy and fangirl a little bit.
Fanboying over Furia.
You had the Furia T-shirt on
did,
desk.
yeah. I mean, it was so hard not to get really invested into all the emotions that was in that stadium, right? So yeah, I mean, that Avangard Furia final was a banger.
Yeah.
But Avangard really did show up, and now we're taking a look at the vetoes. Tom, you've done some research here. What do you think we're going to see?
I think it has to be like a Dust 2 or Mirage, like something along those lines. It's going to favor Avangard, I think, whatever we get, because they have similar map pools, or at least the thing is, like, I spoke to Bondic yesterday, and he was sort of saying they're trying to build everything from the ground up, because obviously Boomage just left being probably the best player, but also the in-game leader. So they've been screwed in 2 senses. They've had barely any time to prepare. Like, the minor didn't go well for them. So it's sort of like, I would say that like each team sort of has like a ban or two. Like, we know that Avangard don't play Nuke, so that's very unlikely to actually be coming up. And yeah, on the other side, well, it's sort of a bit up in the air, because they are a new in-game leader in Edward.
Vertigo, come on.
I'd be surprised.
Vertigo.
Oh, we're being cucked.
I hope
Oh my
Avangard.
God.
Oh, there we go.
That is interesting.
In a best of 1, it gets down to Vertigo. That's
To start the day.
Yeah.
As it was showing behind us here, too, on our screens. That's Vertigo right back there, and we are going to get to see Vertigo.
so. This was whose pick? Winstrike's pick.
Well, it's a best of 1, so it's ban. So
Right.
it ends up being Vertigo.
I think this bodes well for Avangard, actually, because Vertigo was an insta-ban for Avangard coming into Rio and Tours
Yeah,
itself.
didn't they get destroyed by Furia on
in
Vertigo?
the grand
They
final.
did.
That was
They
my
did.
first cast.
It was
of-
like 16-1 or something like that. It was bad.
For sure, but I mean, what this tells me is that Avangard have definitely put in a lot of time into preparing for Vertigo, and Vertigo and Nuke are these 2 maps that you have to come into these DreamHack Opens in 2019 prepared and have something to show for, because in best of 1s, if you're having 2 maps on your side that you're having to veto, that puts you at such a disadvantage already going into that matchup. So this definitely bodes well for Avangard. This will be the first tournament that they're coming into with preparations on Vertigo, so I'm excited to see what they bring.
I mean, going back to last year, DreamHack Austin, we were talking to Major from Space Soldiers. At the time, Space Soldiers was notorious for not playing Nuke. They always banned it. And then Dust 2 got introduced, and they're like, they're like, now we have to also ban that. So then you see like teams that were always statistically like no Nuke teams now became no Nuke, no Dust 2. And now there's Vertigo in the mix too, and you're like, now we can't play all 3 of those maps. Like we have to learn one.
Yeah,
we don't have a
certainly-
choice anymore. We can't just avoid this.
Not at this stage. That's the interesting thing, because it's like, at this stage of the tournament, they could have very happily avoided it.
Yeah,
Like, they get 3 bans. They didn't ban Vertigo as one of them.
And so it's a matter of comfortability.
Yeah, exactly.
And what you worry about with this matchup is you have Avangard and Winstrike. Like, Avangard has history together. They've got time.
Yeah.
They've been playing together for a while. They very clearly saw that loss to Fury and went, well, I think it's time for us to really put the effort forward for Vertigo. Whereas Winstrike, have they really had time with this roster to actually invest in Vertigo, or is it like, let's stay to the core maps?
Well, I would say that Winstrike probably invested most of their time into Vertigo coming in here. I mean, just because they formed their lineup 10, 12 days ago, or I mean, it was very, very recent, and as of late, they're grinding out those hours and coming into this tournament, hey, that's a pocket pick. They know that most teams don't play Vertigo. And so coming into this best of 1s, if you have Vertigo as your pocket pick and it's a map that you've been working on, I think that puts you at such an advantage.
Yeah, but at the same point in time, we see throughout history where teams come in thinking like, haha, gotcha, and then they just get annihilated.
Right.
Like, we aren't as good on this map as we thought we were.
That happened in Rio, actually, versus Furia and Sharks. Sharks came in, thought they were hustling Furia, ended up picking that Vertigo, and Furia ended up coming in and showing
Counter-hustle.
Yeah, exactly. So that's certainly something that Winstrike have to be a little wary of.
We'll take a look at Windstrike on stage as well. We see that Avant-Garde is set and good to go. Now, you know, some of these names not necessarily all that familiar to people, but there are two that stand out, and obviously that's Edward and Bondic. A lot of history between those two players in the CIS region.
Yeah, I think this is going to be really interesting because from what I know, Edward has never been a caller. Like, he's got a hell of a lot of experience, obviously a ridiculous amount of years in Na'Vi. So he's been under like Zeus. He will have worked with them for a long time, and they do now have Jonta as their coach as well, which I think is a great addition to the team. Like Bondic actually spoke about how he was actively trying to bring him in. The fact is, though, having, like I said, a couple of weeks max to learn to be an in-game leader when you've never done it for your whole career, and then to come in and be like, okay, I'm now calling for a group of players who I've only just met. That is a tough task coming into a tournament. Now, I think the one advantage they have is obviously DreamHacks give you a little bit more time for the coaches to actually talk. So Jonta will be given some time. Like, he'll be given some space to say, okay, this round we do this round we do this, and try and give them something if Edward's not feeling comfortable. But as said, from what I've spoke to the team so far, they said that they're all trying to help him become an in-game leader rather than him being ready to do it.
For sure, and I think absolutely Edward coming in, although he hasn't been an in-game leader in the past, he has such veteranship. He's been in the game for so long, competing at the highest levels that this game offers. So I think coming into this lineup, he's got a lot of weight off his shoulders. I mean, he had an interview with HLTV and he mentioned that he kind of knew that this was a long time coming on Na'Vi, and he was just kind of waiting out the time and seeing when it happens. And when he did get benched, it was kind of just the pressure off his shoulders, right? And so I think it's going to be interesting to see him coming into this tournament with a whole new lineup, with a whole new perspective, and him being the veteran and almost the star of this lineup, just as on the namesake. I think hopefully that boosts his performance.
It is a little bit weird seeing Edward not wear Na'Vi colors.
It really is.
Like, it kind of threw me off when I saw him sitting on stage. I'm like,
It's like Taz not wearing VP. It makes me feel uncomfortable. Like, I see him in another
I've
shirt.
gotten used to
like,
that.
Yeah,
I've gotten used to that because I've seen him in like the Kingwin jerseys and these other jerseys.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, like now I'm used to it.
But when it first happened, I was like, ugh, no, go get the other colors back.
Still to this day, one of my best memories of the Polish rosters was actually post-event. I was in the same shuttle as them, leaving the event to go to the airport, and our shuttle driver had a list of all these Polish names, and he had no idea how to say any of them. And like, I was dead last on the list. So there's like 18 of us on this shuttle, and like he's going through the names and just butchering the pronunciation of all of them. And Taz is like trying to help him as best as he can. Finally, he gets somebody who goes, Mark Wilson. And I'm like, you're welcome. like, he's like, at least I got one. You can see the teams are set up, and we should be jumping into the action very shortly. Fitch, probably one of my favorite players from DreamHack Rio because of his post-game interviews, particularly towards the end when he walked out of the interview after we told him he wasn't the MVP.
Yeah, I mean, Fitch is, you can definitely see more of his personality, right? Specifically in these last couple of DreamHacks that he's had. I mean, he's definitely a lot more bubbly, I feel like, on Avant-Garde than he was on Gambit's side. Sure. I mean, maybe the type of pressure that he's feeling is a little bit different, but certainly he's been a huge asset to this Avant-Garde lineup.
You guys can take your predictions in chat. It's Avant-Garde and Windstrike. You can see the commands there. Hashtag AVGR, hashtag WINS. Go ahead and vote now. Hashtag, wins. Hashtag wins. Like, just looking at him though, right there, like it's not a Na'Vi jersey. It's really just throwing me off.
It's like he's in the dark days. Because the other jersey as well is so bright and like yellow, and it's like, now I am somber. I am somber, Edward. I am ready to play. I'll get my revenge one day.
And you can even look, I mean, obviously the odds sort of slanted there a little bit. It really isn't surprising. Not only does Windstrike not have a large enough sample size, Avant-Garde just seems to be a stronger team on paper. Like, even just looking at the players, like pound for pound, apples to apples, I'd say that Avant-Garde is a stronger team right now.
They certainly are, and I mean, Avant-Garde had such a nice performance. I mean, they won the whole event in Rio, but going into tours, they actually fell short in the semifinals versus Mousesports. So I think they're going to be coming into this tournament. I mean, we mentioned always at the desk that you learn more from losses than you do wins, right? So coming into this tournament, I think they're going to have a lot of hunger to prove that, because that semifinals versus Mousesports was pretty one-sided towards that Mousesports side of things, but Avant-Garde has been finding a lot of success online. Specifically, they recently just beat Mousesports again, so they turned things around there. So hopefully, I think they're going to come into this tournament with a hunger, for sure.
Yeah, they're like a young, sort of confident roster. I think Fitch is the only one that he's 26. Everybody else has like an average age of 20. So it's a roster I think that definitely they're going to be around for a long time. And I think they're one of the most exciting rosters in Counter-Strike to watch. Like, so individually skilled. I think Sanji can win you any round with a Deagle. Like, I would bet on him to win a round in this game with a Deagle.
It is pretty impressive how many 1-Deags Sanji managed to find for himself.
And he was a surprise when he joined the roster as well. I think not many people, when he sort of came into Avangard, were going, oh yeah, no, I know that this guy's going to be incredible. But he has. He stepped in, he's filled the shoes, and has just been doing very well since he joined. And personally, for me in Rio, I think he was the MVP.
Here's one of the weirdest things looking at Winstrike. You have these two veterans on your roster, and then you pick a map that they haven't played. That's the thing that's weird for me. So I understand that like they've probably done their homework and they've done their due diligence on the map, but even still looking at that, I go, okay, you have these two guys who have a lot of history in Counter-Strike, and you pick a map that they probably have played only in the last 6 months.
But all these teams coming into this tournament have only played Vertigo X number of times, very little, and so the preparations...
They could have been like 24/7 Assault Vertigo teams, you never know.
Well, it's also Avangard, I think, have only played it like twice. And one of them was them getting absolutely butchered. So
yeah.
It's one of those scenarios where I think that if I'm Winstrike in this scenario, I know that if I go to a map that I would normally play, like Dust 2 or like Mirage, they're going to get slaughtered. Like, they're not going to be able to just take these fights individually. They won't be able to beat Avangard on one of those maps. So go to like a cheesy pick, go to a map that you might not necessarily feel completely comfortable on, but at the same time, you know that they also don't feel completely comfortable on. So you're taking a big risk with your own map pool, but at least you're putting yourself in a position where you have a chance. Because I think you go to Dust 2, you're not going to win. Like, Avangard are a very good Dust 2 and Mirage team.
It's not an ace in the hole, but it's a solid jack.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Tom, saying that, what do you have? What's your prediction for this one?
Avangard all the way. They are the favorite going into this, and Winstrike have had so many sort of troubles over the last month that I think like gambling on them here would basically just be like pushing everything in when I have like 2 aces or something.
Yeah, it certainly is a question mark whether this is going to be Winstrike's honeymoon period, or as you mentioned earlier, whether they're going to have to grind things out, right? But so I definitely have to go with Avangard in here as well. I mean, on paper, pound for pound, player for player, Avangard is just a little bit stronger.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you guys. I think that Avangard is the stronger team. I don't think Winstrike has had enough time together. Yeah, ace in the hole pick, you could say all those things, but it's still just a stronger team. And because of the way that they lost in Rio, you could see they started to do some work. They did play more recently on the map and they picked up a victory, but they've only played it twice. Let's take a look and see what Twitch thought about that. Is it going to be Avangard? It's actually a lot closer.
That is very close.
It could be also the idea of like a regional match. Like, a lot of those times they are fairly close.
I think Avangard are a little bit underrated as well, it seems like, coming into, specifically by Twitch chat.
Well, we do have the casters